Higyousama is a Japanese urban legend that tells the story of the mystery of creepy chicks that are born when the sun is at its highest, or at its darkest, at night. They are no longer in business, but my mother's parents used to run a chicken farm in Shimane Prefecture. Every year during summer vacation, the four of us, my mother, older sister, and younger brother, and myself, would stay with them for a while. My dad was never able to get time off work, so he stayed home. My mother's family home was in Shimane Prefecture, in a village called Uchi. In short, it's a region of Japan surrounded by natural beauty, but to be more precise, the middle of nowhere. We always stay there for about a week. I have a great time and my grandparents always spoil me. Because it was the countryside, so they always got up very early, and went to bed very early too. They wake up at 4 a.m. before the first rooster crows, and get to work on the chicken farm. They will clean up the poop, collect the eggs, check the incubator and do some repairs. Around 5 p.m. they would stop for dinner, and then around 7 my grandfather would have a drink and fall asleep. We also end up going to bed around 8 p.m., but it's hard for us to fall asleep at that time. We ended up talking about the river we visited that day, or what we wanted to do the next day, and that would keep us up all night. Around midnight, I was staring at the beams in the roof when I heard Grandpa's sliding door open. The hallway floor creaked, then someone opened the front door and disappeared outside. I lay there, half asleep, and half awake, when the clock on the wall began to strike 12. It's already this late. I thought. 5 minutes later the front door opened again, and I heard someone come in taking off their sandals, then the floor in the hall creaked and my grandfather's bedroom door slammed shut. Maybe my grandparents are checking on the chickens in the yard, I thought, and before long I fell asleep. The next thing I know is the moon has been replaced by the morning sun, and everyone has eaten breakfast. Everything happened while I was half asleep, so I thought maybe it was just a dream. But that night I couldn't sleep again, and at the same time someone came out, and came back a few moments later. The next day, and then the next day, it's always around 11:30 a.m. someone goes out, and around 12:05 they'll be back. When I asked my brother and sister about it, neither of them paid any attention to it. That's when I started to take an interest in what adults do with their lives. I want to see whatever these people are doing late at night. On the 5th day, I did my best to conserve energy so I could stay awake and follow whoever it was when they went outside. It was really hard waiting for that to happen because I sleep so easily, but this time I did my best to stay awake. Even though I was almost asleep, but my eyes opened when I realized someone was around. I waited for them to come out and then I grabbed my shoes to follow them. Turns out it was Grandpa. I saw him enter the incubator room, which is located 50 meters from the main house. The incubator chamber is a special structure where the eggs are placed to be warmed until they hatch, then the chicks are raised there for a certain period of time. I sneaked in after my grandfather. Not a single light is on, I can only rely on the red light coming out of the incubator. Everything was dim, like the kind of darkness you might see if you stepped into the blankets of a kotetsu. Grandfather was looking at the incubator with a serious expression on his face. He took out 3 eggs from between the incubators and turning his head, he smashed them into a metal trash can nearby. I was so shocked that I suddenly said, "What are you doing, Grandpa?" My grandfather seems to be more surprised than I am. I was worried that he would fall over from the shock, but when he realized it was me, relief washed over his face. Only you. Don't scare me like that," he winced. "What are you doing now?" I asked again. "Putting out bad eggs," he replied, and started looking at the incubator again. I had never heard of such a thing, so I asked him, "Any bad hen?" "You're right, if I don't get it out then something bad will happen," he said, as he took another egg out of the incubator. I tried to take a closer look, but my grandfather immediately panicked. "Do not look. You could go blind," he shouted and quickly cracked the egg in the metal dustbin. I sure saw a chick in the egg. Cracks formed along the outside, like they were just about to hatch. I could imagine what a mess it would be in a trash can, so I didn't want to look at it, and my grandfather quickly covered it with a lid. I saw a piece of white paper on the lid. What's that? I wondered, but my grandfather looked at his watch and said, "It's past midnight, we're done here for the day. Come on, let's go back to bed." I didn't want to stay in this scary place alone at night, so I quickly got out of there. I think I saw something that looked like a toy next to the incubator door, but I was tired and a little scared. So I told myself that I'll check it out in the morning, and for now I'll just follow Grandpa back to the main house. Out of fear, I also decided to spend the rest of the night in Grandpa's room. The next morning I went out to catch bugs with my little brother, and when we came back, we went straight for an early lunch. But then I realized something was wrong. Grandpa is here today, I thought. Come to think of it, I've never seen Grandpa have lunch with us. He always disappears around 11:30 p.m. On this day, Grandpa seems to have gone to see a friend in town early in the morning. He came back around 11 p.m., slightly drunk, and joined us at the table. He was eating plain rice with pickled vegetables and a cup of tea, until at one point he fell asleep face down on the table. We thought it would be bad manners to wake him up, so we left him there and went outside to play. I remembered what I saw outside the incubator the night before, so I went with my sister to check it out. It wasn't a toy, it was a hand mirror, but the sides of the mirror had been painted with some kind of bright red paint. There was also a small clay bust, and a bunch of cheap plastic flowers. They look colorful at night, which is why they look like toys. But what are these things really for? I can't guess at all. I remember how Grandpa threw the eggs in the trash the night before. In the dark I couldn't see very well, but now I could see lines of ancient kanji I couldn't read on the bits of old paper stuck all over the trash can lid. Hey. One hatch. What? My sister is watching the eggs hatch in the incubator. I wanted to see it too, so I opened the door. A chick is inside, but something is different. I took a closer look, and it wasn't like the other chicks. This one wasn't shaking at all, nor was it chirping. And the eyes, those are human eyes. The chicken jumped off the shelf in the incubator and hit the ground with a thump. He didn't even shake his head, he just walked away. I can do nothing but watch in horror. The chicken continued to run out of the incubator and turned west, disappearing into the distance. Free from the temporary paralysis that had gripped me, I was finally able to move again. I saw my brother, drooling was running down his chin and his eyes, blank. I called his name many times but he didn't answer. I kept screaming his name, until grandparents ran panting to where we were. Hey. Are you looking at him? I was so scared. No, I replied. My grandfather looked into my eyes. You did it right. Where it goes? The look in his eyes was terrifying. That way, I said, pointing west. My grandfather grabbed the ox statue and a bunch of flowers and went in the direction I pointed. Granny called my sister's name over and over, but she didn't give an answer as drool continued to roll down her chin. He locked eyes with Higyousama, didn't he? He said with sadness in his voice. Is he going to be okay? I asked my grandmother, who was still looking at my sister's strange state. I didn't. Get the red mirror for me. I handed the mirror to him, and he said, you can't be here. Go see your mother now. I went outside to see my mom and sister, but I didn't know what to say, so I just hugged her. Grandma returned shortly with my sister in tow. Nothing happened, thank God, I thought as I saw him walk towards me, but something still felt off. I spoke to him, and it was indeed my sister. He remembers going to the incubator room with me, and what we did the day before. But there was something different about him. My mother also noticed and turned to my grandmother. Mother, he doesn't. My grandmother sadly nodded her head. My mom pulled my little brother into her arms and started crying. He just stared blankly. My brother looked at her with confusion and fear in his eyes, but when he saw our mother cry, he cried too. Grandfather returned shortly after. It's not good, I'm not in time. He sadly shook his head. I don't know who it is, but it will happen in the next 2 or 3 days. Can you get out the morning clothes and preparations for morning? After saying that, Grandpa grabbed my sister and hugged her. Forgive me. This happened because I fell asleep. I'm so sorry. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Grandpa, it hurts, my sister said. The voice and action did belong to my sister, but at the same time it wasn't her at all. My grandfather spoke to me after that. Chicks born when the sun is at the highest point in the sky, or when it is darkest at night, have their respective roles. So that's why we have to kill them. So the chicks that hatch at night will become Higyousama? I asked. How did you know that? So your grandma told you, huh? No, that's not it. Those that hatch at night become something even scarier. He turned towards the incubator room with a somber expression on his face. This part of the story ends here. After that, when I was in high school, one of my classmates also had a family that ran a chicken farm. I asked him if he had heard of Higyousama, but at first he just gave me a confused look. Then he said, you mean Iwashi chicken? However, nowadays technology has advanced and there are sensors and timers on incubation machines that automatically discard eggs that will hatch at 12 noon and 12 at night. I still return to Shimane every year. My sister now works as an elementary school teacher. I don't even remember what he was like before all this happened again. Although different, it's been more than 20 years since we all lived together as a family, so I guess he's also become a part of our family.